In the early stages of dating Alex, the atmosphere was filled with a mix of excitement and anticipation. Our first few dates took place in cozy coffee shops and lively bars, settings that perfectly complemented the budding connection we were exploring. The aroma of freshly brewed coffee and the soft chatter of patrons created a warm backdrop for our conversations. I remember our first date vividly. We met at a quaint cafe downtown, where the ambiance was inviting and relaxed. Alex arrived with a bright smile, exuding confidence that immediately drew me in. As we chatted over steaming cups of coffee, I felt a spark of chemistry that made my heart race. His laughter was infectious, and I found myself hanging on to his every word, captivated by his stories and charm. As our dates progressed, I noticed Alex's behavior during our outings. He was attentive, often leaning in to listen closely as I spoke, making me feel valued and heard. His sense of humor was delightful, and I appreciated how he effortlessly made me laugh. However, as the initial excitement began to settle, I started to observe subtle shifts in his demeanor. While he was engaging in fun during our time together, there were moments when he seemed distracted or distant, particularly when discussing deeper topics. I found myself questioning whether he was truly invested in getting to know me, or if he was simply enjoying the thrill of the chase. The contrast between the initial thrill of our connection and the growing concerns I felt was palpable. I couldn't shake the feeling that there was more beneath the surface, and I began to wonder if Alex was as emotionally available as he appeared. The vibrant energy of our early dates started to give way to a sense of uncertainty. I found myself grappling with mixed emotions, torn between the excitement of our budding romance and the nagging doubts that began to creep in. As I reflected on our time together, I realized that while the chemistry was undeniable, I needed to pay attention to the signs that hinted at deeper issues. This internal conflict set the stage for the complexities that would unfold as our relationship progressed. On our fourth date with Alex, I found myself increasingly uneasy as the evening unfolded. We had chosen a trendy bar known for its vibrant atmosphere and craft cocktails, a place that had previously felt exciting and inviting. However, this time the energy felt different. As we settled into our seats, I noticed Alex's demeanor had shifted. He seemed more reserved, occasionally glancing at his phone, which made me feel sidelined. During our conversation, he often interrupted me, steering the topics toward himself and his interests, leaving little room for me to share my thoughts. These uncomfortable moments began to pile up, and I could sense a growing tension in the air. As the night progressed, Alex's behavior became increasingly alarming. He made several offhand comments that felt dismissive, particularly when I expressed my opinions on certain topics. At one point, he laughed off my thoughts on a serious issue, brushing them aside as if they were trivial. I felt a knot tightening in my stomach, realizing that this wasn't the attentive, engaging person I had met on our first dates. Instead, I was confronted with someone who seemed to prioritize his own perspective over mine, and it left me feeling undervalued and unheard. By the time dessert arrived, I was grappling with my instincts, which were screaming at me to reconsider this relationship. I could no longer ignore the red flags that had begun to surface. The excitement I had felt just a few dates prior was overshadowed by a growing sense of discomfort and concern. After a long internal debate, I made the difficult decision to end things with Alex. I knew that trusting my instincts was crucial. I had to prioritize my emotional well-being over the fleeting thrill of a new romance. As I walked away from that date, I felt a mix of relief and sadness. It was a poignant reminder of the importance of listening to one's gut feelings in relationships. Sometimes the initial chemistry can mask deeper issues, and recognizing when something doesn't feel right is essential. Trusting my instincts allowed me to take a step back and reassess what I truly wanted in a partner, paving the way for healthier connections in the future. After the unsettling experience of our fourth date, I was filled with a sense of dread as I drove home. The vibrant lights of the city blurred past me, but my mind was racing with thoughts of Alex's behavior. The knot in my stomach tightened as I replayed the evening in my head, feeling a mix of fear and anxiety. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off, and as I turned onto my street, I glanced in my rearview mirror, my heart sinking when I spotted a familiar car trailing closely behind me. Panic surged through me. It was Alex's vehicle. My palms grew clammy on the steering wheel as I tried to rationalize the situation. Maybe he was just heading in the same direction, I thought, but deep down, I felt a chill run down my spine. The unease escalated as I made a few turns, and the car continued to follow. I felt trapped, my mind racing with worst-case scenarios. What did he want? Why was he following me? I tried to focus on the road, but my thoughts spiraled into a whirlwind of fear. Once I arrived home, I quickly parked and rushed inside, locking the door behind me. My heart was still pounding as I reached for my phone, hoping to find some clarity in a text exchange we had earlier. I opened our conversation and saw a message from Alex that sent shivers down my spine. "I just wanted to make sure you got home safely. I can't stop thinking about you." While his words might have seemed caring at first glance, they felt suffocating and invasive given the context of our last date. It was a clear indication that he didn't respect the boundaries I had tried to establish. This experience underscored the importance of personal safety and maintaining boundaries in relationships. It was a stark reminder that even seemingly harmless intentions could mask deeper issues. Trusting my instincts was crucial, and I realized that I needed to prioritize my safety above all else. Setting clear boundaries is essential in any relationship, and recognizing when someone crosses those lines is vital for protecting oneself. As I sat in the safety of my home, I vowed to be more vigilant in the future, ensuring that I would never again ignore my instincts when it came to my well-being. As the days passed after that unsettling drive home, Alex's behavior escalated in ways that left me feeling increasingly uneasy. It began with unwanted gifts, flowers left on my doorstep, and messages that felt more like demands than gestures of affection. Each time I received a bouquet, my heart raced with anxiety rather than joy. The notes that accompanied them were filled with declarations of his feelings, but they felt invasive and overwhelming. I had made it clear that I wanted to end things, yet his persistence only heightened my sense of fear. The messages became more frequent, often arriving late at night, filled with questions about my whereabouts and comments about how he couldn't stop thinking about me. It was as if he was trying to assert control over a situation that I had already tried to close the door on. Recognizing the seriousness of the situation, I knew I had to take action. I began researching the process of obtaining a restraining order, understanding that it was a necessary step to protect myself. I reached out to a local legal aid organization where I was guided through the steps involved. The process was daunting, but I was determined. I gathered evidence of Alex's behavior, including the gifts and messages, and documented each incident meticulously. The staff was supportive, emphasizing that I was not overreacting and that my safety was paramount. They explained the importance of presenting a clear case to the court, which would involve filling out forms and possibly attending a hearing. As I navigated this process, I was reminded of the importance of taking threats seriously. It's easy to dismiss unsettling behavior as mere infatuation or harmless affection, but I learned that ignoring these signs can lead to dangerous situations. The reality is that boundaries must be respected, and when they are not, it is crucial to take decisive action. The restraining order would serve as a legal safeguard, providing me with a sense of security and the ability to reclaim my autonomy. Ultimately, I realized that prioritizing my safety was not just a personal choice, but a necessary step in reclaiming my life. I felt empowered by my decision, knowing that I was taking control of my situation and standing firm against unwanted advances. That night began like any other, but an unsettling tension hung in the air, making me acutely aware of every creak and groan of the house. As I settled into bed, the familiar sounds of the night, the rustling of leaves outside and the distant hum of traffic, were suddenly overshadowed by an eerie silence. It was then that I heard it. A faint noise, almost like the soft scrape of something against the wall. My heart raced, and I strained to listen, hoping it was just my imagination playing tricks on me. But the sound persisted, sending chills down my spine. I sat up in bed, my breath quickening as I tried to convince myself it was nothing. Yet the unsettling feeling grew stronger. I could hear what sounded like footsteps, slow and deliberate, echoing through the hallway. Panic surged through me, and I felt a wave of dread wash over me. I knew I had to act quickly. Quietly, I slipped out of bed and grabbed my phone, my hands trembling as I dialed 911. I whispered my address, trying to keep my voice steady as I explained the situation. The operator assured me that help was on the way, but I felt a sense of urgency to ensure my safety in the meantime. I moved cautiously through the house, my heart pounding in my ears. Every shadow seemed to loom larger, and every sound felt amplified. I checked the windows and doors, ensuring they were locked tight, and I grabbed a heavy object from the kitchen, ready to defend myself if necessary. I could still hear those footsteps, now accompanied by the unsettling sound of something shifting in the living room. My mind raced with thoughts of what could be happening, and I felt a surge of adrenaline as I prepared for the worst. In that moment, I realized the importance of calling for help in dangerous situations. I was not alone. There were professionals trained to handle emergencies, and I had taken the right step by reaching out. As I waited for the police to arrive, I reminded myself to stay calm and focused. The fear was palpable, but I knew that I had done everything I could to protect myself. The experience was a stark reminder of the unpredictability of life and the necessity of being prepared for the unexpected. The story of Chris began innocently enough, as he was a classmate I had known for a while. At first, our interactions were casual and friendly, typical of high school dynamics. We would exchange pleasantries in the hallways and occasionally work together on group projects. However, what started as harmless banter soon morphed into something far more uncomfortable. Chris began to seek me out more frequently, often lingering after class to chat, which initially seemed flattering. But as time went on, his attention became increasingly unwanted. He would send me messages on social media, often commenting on my appearance or making jokes that crossed the line from friendly to invasive. As Chris's behavior escalated, I found myself feeling trapped. His friends, who were often around during these interactions, began to join in, laughing and egging him on. The peer pressure was palpable, and it felt as though they were encouraging his harassment rather than discouraging it. Their laughter made it difficult for me to voice my discomfort. I felt isolated and powerless. The situation became a source of anxiety, as I dreaded running into Chris and his friends in the hallways. What had once been a simple school experience turned into a daily struggle to navigate the unwanted attention and the bullying that accompanied it. The impact of this harassment weighed heavily on me. I felt a mix of embarrassment and fear, unsure of how to handle the situation. I often questioned whether I was overreacting or if I should just ignore it, but deep down, I knew that this was not normal behavior. It was during this time that I realized the importance of reporting harassment to trusted adults. I finally mustered the courage to confide in a teacher who I felt comfortable with. Their response was supportive and understanding, and they assured me that I was not alone in this. They explained the steps we could take to address the situation, emphasizing that no one should have to endure harassment in silence. This experience taught me that speaking up is crucial when faced with harassment. It's essential to reach out to trusted adults who can provide guidance and support. No one should feel trapped or powerless in their school environment, and reporting such behavior is a vital step toward reclaiming one's sense of safety and dignity. As the weeks went by, the harassment from Chris intensified, leaving me feeling increasingly isolated and anxious. What had started as unwanted attention had escalated into a relentless cycle of stalking and intimidation. He would wait for me after class, making snide remarks and attempting to corner me in hallways. Each encounter felt like a weight pressing down on my chest, and I found it difficult to concentrate on my studies or enjoy time with friends. The emotional toll was significant. I felt trapped in a situation that seemed to have no escape. The constant fear of running into Chris left me on edge, and I often found myself looking over my shoulder, dreading the moments when I would have to face him. In an effort to regain some control, I decided to report the harassment to school authorities. I approached the guidance counselor, hoping for understanding and support. However, the response I received was disheartening. The counselor seemed dismissive, suggesting that I should simply ignore Chris or avoid him altogether. This inadequate response only deepened my feelings of frustration and helplessness. I had hoped for a proactive approach, perhaps involving a meeting with Chris or his friends to address the behavior directly, but instead, I was met with indifference. It became clear that the school was not equipped to handle the situation effectively, leaving me feeling unsupported and vulnerable. The failure of the school to take appropriate action was not just disappointing, it was alarming. I realized that many students might be suffering in silence, facing similar harassment without the necessary support systems in place. The lack of a clear protocol for addressing harassment and bullying created an environment where victims felt they had no recourse. This experience highlighted the urgent need for better support systems for victims of harassment. Schools must prioritize the safety and well-being of their students by implementing comprehensive policies that address bullying and stalking. Victims should feel empowered to speak up without fear of being dismissed or ignored. It is crucial for educational institutions to foster a culture of accountability, where harassment is taken seriously and addressed promptly. Only then can students feel safe and supported in their learning environments, allowing them to thrive without the shadow of fear looming over them. The emotional toll of harassment is profound, and it is imperative that schools recognize their role in protecting students and providing the necessary resources to combat such behavior. One evening, as I settled into the comfort of my home, the sense of safety I had longed for was abruptly shattered. The sun had dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across my room, when I heard a sudden, sharp sound that made my heart race. A loud thud against my window. I froze, my breath hitching in my throat as I strained to listen. The noise came again, this time accompanied by a series of rapid, jarring impacts. Panic surged through me as I realized that Chris was outside, throwing rocks at my window. The urgency of the situation hit me like a cold wave. I rushed to the window, peering through the curtains, my heart pounding in my chest. There he was, standing in the dim light, a menacing silhouette against the backdrop of the night. I could see the glint of something in his hand, and the realization that he was deliberately targeting me sent a jolt of fear coursing through my veins. I felt trapped, my sanctuary invaded by someone who had turned from a classmate into a source of terror. In that moment, I understood the importance of securing one's home. I quickly moved to lock the door and check the windows, ensuring that everything was tightly shut. My mind raced with thoughts of what could happen if he managed to get inside. I felt a wave of vulnerability wash over me, realizing that my home, which should have been a safe haven, had become a place of fear. The emotional impact of feeling unsafe in my own space was overwhelming. I had always believed that home was where I could escape the world, but now it felt like a prison. As I dialed 911, my hands trembled, and I struggled to keep my voice steady. I reported the incident, explaining that Chris was outside my home, throwing rocks and behaving aggressively. The operator assured me that help was on the way, but the minutes felt like hours as I waited, my heart racing with anxiety. The fear of what Chris might do next loomed large in my mind, and I felt a profound sense of helplessness. This experience was a stark reminder of how quickly safety can be compromised and the emotional toll that such violations can take. I realized that no one should have to live in fear within their own home, and the urgency of the situation underscored the need for vigilance and protection in our personal spaces. The story of Emily began with a whirlwind of excitement that swept me off my feet. We met at a mutual friends gathering, where her infectious laughter and vibrant personality instantly drew me in. Our initial conversations flowed effortlessly, and I felt an undeniable chemistry that made my heart race. As we began dating, the thrill of new love enveloped me, and I found myself eagerly anticipating each moment we spent together. Emily was charming and attentive, showering me with affection that made me feel special and cherished. However, as the relationship progressed, subtle signs of possessiveness began to emerge, casting a shadow over the initial excitement. At first, it was small things. Emily would often want to know where I was and who I was with, which I initially brushed off as concern. But as time went on, her inquiries became more intense. She would text me repeatedly if I didn't respond quickly, and I noticed a shift in her demeanor when I spent time with friends without her. The playful teasing turned into pointed comments about my loyalty, and I began to feel a sense of unease. I found myself walking on eggshells, trying to navigate her moods and avoid triggering her jealousy. The thrill of our early romance was slowly being replaced by a growing sense of fear and confusion. I struggled to reconcile the loving partner I had fallen for with the increasingly controlling behavior I was witnessing. It was disorienting. One moment I felt adored, and the next I was questioning my every move. I began to doubt myself, wondering if I was doing something wrong or if I was somehow responsible for her reactions. The emotional turmoil left me feeling isolated, as I hesitated to share my concerns with friends or family, fearing they might not understand the complexities of our relationship. This experience highlighted the importance of recognizing unhealthy relationship dynamics. It became clear that what I was experiencing was not love, but rather a toxic blend of affection and control. I realized that possessiveness often masquerades as care, but it can quickly spiral into something far more damaging. Understanding these red flags was crucial for my emotional well-being, and I knew I had to take a step back to evaluate the relationship. It was a painful realization, but acknowledging the signs of an unhealthy dynamic was the first step toward reclaiming my sense of self and ensuring that I would not settle for anything less than a relationship built on mutual respect and trust. As the weeks passed, the tension in my relationship with Emily reached a boiling point. What had once been a source of joy had morphed into a cycle of anxiety and fear. The possessiveness that had initially seemed like affection had escalated into outright control. Emily's behavior became increasingly erratic. She would lash out over minor things, and I found myself constantly on edge, trying to anticipate her reactions. The atmosphere was thick with unspoken words and unresolved issues, and I could feel the weight of our growing disconnect. The confrontation came one fateful evening when I finally mustered the courage to address my concerns. We were sitting in her living room, the air heavy with tension. I had hoped for an open dialogue, but as soon as I began to express my feelings, Emily's demeanor shifted. Her eyes narrowed, and I could see the anger bubbling beneath the surface. She accused me of being ungrateful for her love and attention, twisting my words to fit her narrative. The argument escalated quickly, and I felt a surge of fear as her voice rose, filled with accusations and blame. I tried to remain calm, but the intensity of her anger was overwhelming. In that moment, I realized how far we had strayed from the loving relationship we once shared. The fear I felt was palpable, and I knew I had to make a choice. As Emily continued to shout, I felt a clarity wash over me. I could no longer ignore the signs that this relationship was unhealthy. I took a deep breath and, with a trembling voice, told her that I needed to end things. The words hung in the air, and for a moment, silence enveloped us. Emily's expression shifted from anger to disbelief, and I could see the realization dawning on her face. Ending the relationship was one of the hardest decisions I had ever made, but it was necessary for my well-being. This experience underscored the importance of setting boundaries in relationships. I had allowed Emily's possessiveness to cloud my judgment, and I realized that I had to prioritize my own mental health and safety. Establishing boundaries is crucial in any relationship. It fosters respect and ensures that both partners feel valued and secure. As I walked away from that confrontation, I felt a mix of sadness and relief, knowing that I had taken a vital step toward reclaiming my autonomy and finding a healthier path forward. That night began like any other, but an unsettling feeling settled over me as darkness enveloped my home. I had ended my relationship with Emily just days prior, and while I felt a sense of relief, I couldn't shake the anxiety that lingered in the back of my mind. I had heard stories of people reacting unpredictably after a breakup, and I worried that Emily might not take the news well. As I prepared for bed, I double-checked the locks on my doors and windows, a sense of urgency driving my actions. The shadows in my room felt more pronounced, and every creak of the house sent a shiver down my spine. Just as I was about to turn off the lights, I heard a faint noise outside, a soft rustling that made my heart race. I paused, straining to listen, and then I heard it again, this time louder. My breath caught in my throat as I realized it was coming from the back door. Panic surged through me, and I quickly grabbed my phone, my hands trembling as I dialed 911. I whispered my address, trying to keep my voice steady as I explained the situation. The operator assured me that help was on the way, but I felt a wave of dread wash over me as I heard the unmistakable sound of the door being forced open. Adrenaline coursed through my veins as I moved quietly through the house, my heart pounding in my ears. I grabbed a heavy object from the kitchen, a sturdy frying pan, and positioned myself near the entrance, ready to defend myself if necessary. The tension in the air was suffocating, and I could hear footsteps approaching, each one echoing ominously in the silence. I felt a mix of fear and determination. I had to protect myself at all costs. When Emily stepped into the living room, her expression was a mix of anger and desperation. "You can't just leave me!" she shouted, her voice filled with a wild intensity. I stood my ground, gripping the frying pan tightly, my heart racing as I prepared for whatever might come next. In that moment, I realized the importance of seeking help in dangerous situations. I had taken the right step by calling the authorities, but I also understood that I needed to stand firm and protect myself. As I waited for the police to arrive, I felt a surge of empowerment. I knew I had to prioritize my safety and well-being, and I was determined not to let fear dictate my actions. This terrifying experience was a stark reminder of the unpredictability of relationships and the necessity of being vigilant in protecting oneself. In the aftermath of the attack, I was left grappling with a whirlwind of emotions that felt overwhelming. The shock of Emily breaking into my home had shattered my sense of safety, and I found myself constantly looking over my shoulder, even in familiar places. The adrenaline that had surged during the confrontation was replaced by a deep-seated anxiety that lingered long after the police had left. I struggled to sleep, haunted by nightmares of that night, and the once comforting walls of my home now felt like a prison. The emotional toll was significant. I felt vulnerable and exposed, questioning my judgment and the choices I had made in the relationship. Navigating the legal system in the wake of the attack proved to be another daunting challenge. After the police took Emily into custody, I was faced with the reality of pressing charges. I had to recount the details of the incident multiple times, each retelling reopening wounds that I was desperately trying to heal. The legal jargon and procedures felt foreign and intimidating, and I often found myself feeling lost in the process. I was assigned a victim advocate who helped guide me through the complexities of the legal system, but the experience was still emotionally taxing. I had to confront not only the trauma of the attack, but also the fear of what might happen during the court proceedings. Throughout this ordeal, the importance of support and resources for victims became glaringly evident. I sought counseling to help process my feelings and cope with the anxiety that had taken hold of my life. The therapist provided a safe space for me to express my fears and frustrations, helping me to regain a sense of control over my emotions. Additionally, support groups for victims of domestic violence offered a community of understanding and shared experiences, reminding me that I was not alone in this fight. As I moved through the legal process, I realized that having a strong support system was crucial. Friends and family rallied around me, offering encouragement and reminding me of my strength. Their presence helped me to feel less isolated and more empowered to face the challenges ahead. This experience taught me that while the journey to reclaiming my sense of safety and normalcy would be long, it was essential to lean on others and utilize available resources. The road to healing was just beginning, but I was determined to emerge stronger and more resilient than before. As we wrap up this discussion, it's crucial to reflect on the main points we've covered regarding the complexities of relationships and the importance of recognizing red flags. Throughout the narratives shared, we've seen how initial excitement can quickly turn into unhealthy dynamics, often masked by affection and charm. It's vital for viewers to be vigilant and aware of the signs that indicate a relationship may be crossing into possessiveness or control. Recognizing these red flags early on can empower individuals to make informed decisions about their romantic lives and prioritize their emotional well-being. We also highlighted the significance of personal safety and the necessity of seeking help when faced with threatening situations. Whether it's reaching out to trusted friends, family, or professionals, it's essential to know that you are not alone and that support is available. The stories we discussed serve as a reminder that taking action, whether through reporting harassment or seeking legal protection, is a critical step in reclaiming one's sense of safety and autonomy. Your well-being should always come first, and there are resources and people ready to help you navigate these challenges. As we conclude, I encourage all viewers to take these lessons to heart. If you or someone you know is experiencing similar issues, don't hesitate to reach out for help. It's important to foster a culture of awareness and support, where individuals feel empowered to speak up and seek assistance. If you found this video informative and impactful, please consider subscribing to our channel. Your support helps us raise awareness about these critical issues and reach more people who may benefit from this information. Don't forget to like and share this video with friends and family. Spreading awareness can make a significant difference in someone's life. Together, we can create a safer environment for everyone and ensure that no one has to endure unhealthy relationships in silence. Thank you for joining us today, and remember, recognizing the signs and prioritizing your safety is the first step toward healthier, more fulfilling relationships.